Oh, man, are you sick of the winning yet? Can you smell it? Oh, gosh, it smells so good, doesn't it? Good morning. It is great to be here kicking off a Thursday in Kansas City on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. So yesterday, the House of Representatives passed the revamped Laken Riley Act, and it will now go to Donald Trump's desk.
Woo!
That's right. And guess what? Right here in Kansas City, there was a yes vote from Sharice Davids on the Kansas side of the state line, a Democrat who represents Johnson County, parts of Wyandotte County, of course, down to Miami, and further south from there. There were 46 Democrats who joined Republicans to pass the bill 263 to 156. There's not much that passes with that kind of bipartisan support. The Laken Riley Act did exactly that yesterday. This is a home run. Now, Emanuel Cleaver on the Missouri side was a no vote, and I can't sit here and say I'm shocked by that, right? Emanuel Cleaver, he feels like he's got you guys in Kansas City on lockdown. He thinks that, a bill that would detain certain illegal aliens who have been arrested for burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting, he figures that you want those individuals around Kansas City. He figures you would not want those individuals to be deported, which is basically what the Laken Riley Act does. It is named after the young woman who got killed going out for a run at the University of Georgia and who became a national story because of that tragedy. This would now require federal officials to arrest these illegal aliens who are charged with crimes in the United States. It feels like a no-brainer to me. If you have committed an act of violence or anything illegal, I mean, once again, if you're shoplifting from a mom-and-pop store in Kansas City, then guess what? If it turns out that you're here legally, you're done. How is that at all controversial? How did this not pass the House 435 to nothing? Oh, I know why. Because you got people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's why. Who apparently learned absolutely nothing from what happened in this country on November 5th and took to the House floor yesterday and said this.
If someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court, without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty.
Sign me up. I mean, first off, that's a very extreme and dramatic interpretation of this bill. But that's AOC for you, John.
See, I thought all that stuff applied to citizens.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I mean, she seems much more concerned about the rights of someone who already has broken the law to get here than she is interested in protecting small business owners, managers at major American chains, right? Like, this is not just putting the mom and pop corner store in jeopardy. This is also about the manager of the Target, who, God forbid, has to deal with somebody who is breaking the law, theft, shoplifting, whatever it might be. They're in a very difficult spot. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, they can call the police, but they're getting underpaid for what they have to deal with in that situation. You can't deny that. So you've got this Laken Riley Act that passes the House yesterday. It is now going to Donald Trump's desk. It should become law. I mean, as soon as today, with the way Trump's going. The only thing with Trump is you hope his hand is okay. His hand might be hurting a little bit from all these executive orders and things he's been signing the first couple of days in office. So I hope he's got some ice on the old hand to make sure he can at least sign this bill into law, hopefully today. I mean, hopefully the big guy's getting up and getting at it there, John.
I love how people think citizenship's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Like, when I go to France, I'm an American visiting France. I can't go over and go, hey, I've got First Amendment rights.
Yep.
No, I do back over here. Membership has its privileges back here.
You know, I'm going to share this, and you just triggered my mind to think of the story that my buddy sent to me, a week ago. So he's got an uncle. His uncle is very liberal, And his uncle reached out to my buddy, and he said, man, we're looking at leaving the country. Him and his partner are looking at leaving the country. And he said, yeah, we're looking at places in Europe. And he says to him, I really want to go to Italy and live there. He said, the problem is in Italy, you have to know the language to become a citizen. And he goes, I love that about Italy. It's like, dude, do you not realize your own hypocrisy here? He goes, I totally respect what Italy's going for there. It's like, that's what a lot of us are saying here in the United States. We have one language. We should learn the language. We should assimilate to American culture and, bring the best, bring the brightest, bring those who just want to bust their butts and work hard. That's what makes America great. Yes, immigration makes America great. Legal immigration makes America great. This is the land of opportunity. But you've got, especially over the last 4 years, too many people who cut the line and too many people with bad intentions who are bad actors. Not most of them. No, not most of them. But too many. And no one's keeping tabs on anybody. Nobody has kept tabs on anybody. So you really don't know what's going on. So this Laken Riley Act is going to pass, or it did pass. Donald Trump will sign it into law. Now, here in Kansas City, Mark alerted this. He shared this with me yesterday. And I guess there are rumors of ICE raids happening around Kansas City. Mark, when you went home and did your deep dives for the show like you do every night for hours upon hours upon hours, did you find any more information on these alleged ICE raids?
I didn't see any big ICE raids. I saw maybe some photos of ICE cars in Olathe. That's all I saw.
That's all you saw?
Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't see any roundups or anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, on the other side of state line, Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca was doing his best to validate these reports. He shared yesterday on X, I want to know if ICE is in our community. Call, email, or text my office. By the way, this is all being handled by the feds. This is part of their job, right? I mean, this is what they are supposed to be doing. But he never confirmed or denied it either on the Missouri side of the state line. The Jackson County legislator said, folks, he used the old Biden to start his tweet. Folks, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to validate these reports. Please know that spreading accusations without justifiable proof also instills fear into the community. What does that mean? What is the community? You mean people who are here illegally? Like, this isn't an indictment on Latinos, Asians, blacks, whites. It's literally like, hey, the federal government is going to start figuring out some of the people who came here illegally and starting with the bad actors who may be here illegally. Is that the community we're talking about? In which case, I hope that they are scared to death because they should be.
Man, he's going to have to up his game so you don't spread fear, you strike
fear.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, good.
Yeah.
I hope it should spread a little fear.
I hope so. At this point, he writes, I have not been able to validate any claims that have been spreading across social media. Please be cautious spreading rumors at this point about immigration raids, illegal immigration raids. No one's going after immigrants. Nobody's doing it, okay? Stop. Share with people that your rights, share the know your rights information, but not raids. I don't know what that means. That might be a butchered line there from the Jackson County legislator, but you get the point. 913-4087-957. As we kick it off on a Thursday morning on KCMO, the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, is going to be here coming up at 7:30. And new Fox News star Will Cain joins us at 8:30. So do not miss those conversations coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO. Meantime, a local organization wants more of your money. We'll tell you who and why next. Another mess made back in 2020 is potentially about to be cleaned up here in Kansas City. Good morning. It's great to have you on KCMO Talk Radio. What would that be? That would be the free bus fare that has been in place in this town for the last 5 years. It was a bad idea when it went into place, and now it looks like an even worse idea. And Kansas City is trying to figure out what to do with the budget for the KCATA. So what's happening right now is yesterday there was a big rally. They're really getting ahead of this thing because Kansas City is going to be working on its budget in the weeks and months ahead. They'll be finalizing that budget. Usually it's sometime in the early spring. So the KCATA folks and the union people, they want to make sure they're getting theirs. They want to make sure they are getting, air quotes, fully funded. And they held a little rally outside of HQ yesterday, and here is what it sounded like, courtesy of Fox 4.
What do we want?
Silent justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
Those numbers came from the Amalgamated Transit Union. Their local 1287 president, Nicholas Miller, says the KCATA needs to start looking at other governmental entities to fund the authority.
We have to start looking at Johnson County. We have to start looking at Platte County, Clay County, all around right now to be able to expand the service.
Before the public comment portion of Wednesday's meeting, KCATA Board of Commissioner Chair Reginald Townsend said the community wants a strong transit system.
Like you, KCATA doesn't want to make transit cuts. However, KCATA is reliant on funding it receives from contracted partners throughout the region. Those contracts have not been finalized yet.
That's Fox 4, John Ketz, right here in Kansas City. Now, here's what's going to happen. The city is going to try to figure out how to keep the bus fare free because they know they have to because the dopey streetcar is free, and you can't have poor people paying to ride the bus while wealthy people downtown don't pay anything for the toy train. The obvious thing to do is charge for both, but there's no way to really charge money for the toy train, the streetcar, as some call it, downtown, because there's no one collecting money. And also, the streetcar ridership would go in the toilet because it's not really mass transit. It's a vanity project, is what it is. And it has been since, it became to be. I mean, I lived downtown for a while, and I'm telling you right now, that thing is not mass transit. There's nothing about that moves a massive amount of people from point A to point B in an efficient manner. Oops, there's a pickup truck in the street. We got to wait. Someone should be out here soon, we hope. I've outwalked the streetcar many a time. So they've got this problem on their hands where they're running out of money. I'll ask the mayor in an hour, but I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, they used some COVID dollars to help with the shortfall in revenues that KCATA had when they got rid of the bus fare. And, of course, the COVID money has long dried up. So I'll ask the mayor about that, but my thought here is what they want to do and what they're going to do is basically try to shame other counties, Johnson County on the Kansas side, Platte County you heard him mention on the Missouri side, to chip in a little bit more to cover the shortfall. Now you tell me at 913-408-7957, whether it's a text or a call, or hit us up on social media. Do you want any more of your tax dollars going to the KCATA? Is that something that you believe at this point in time, with everything that this region has been through from a financial perspective over the last few years, do you think that is a good investment of your tax dollars? There's no wrong answer here. I mean, listen, I don't want mine going towards it, but if you're like, yeah, give Frank White III another few bucks to work with there, then just tell me. I'm happy to be on the other side of that deal. No problem to me. But I'll say this much about Frank White III. He's the one who's actually said we may need to start exploring bringing back the bus fare, which was, I think, $1.50 a trip, $3 a day before they got rid of it in 2020. And it's not only about the money, it's also about the safety, right? You got people packing heat now on the buses. You've got drivers packing heat on the buses because they're like, I don't know what I'm walking into. You got a homeless crisis that is totally ballooned out of control. You've got them saying, hey, I can get a free ride on the bus. I can stay warm on the bus. You have people who have reported, unfortunately, it's not gotten a ton of media attention. You've had people who have reported getting harassed, getting abused, getting heckled. I had a lady hit me up on Facebook a couple of months ago and say that she was beat up by a homeless guy on the bus, and she's working on the police report right now trying to get it to me. Like, that stuff is happening. And too many people have just turned a blind eye to it. On the text line, this is a very interesting point on the text line. Pete, they've got to keep the free transit up at least through the World Cup next year. I hadn't thought about that, but that is an excellent point. There is something to be said for Kansas City being able to say on the world stage when we host these World Cup games coming up in a year and a half, hey, we've got free transit. Look at us. Transit's free. Ride the bus. Ride the streetcar. Life is good. That's an excellent point, John.
Unfortunately, there are no games between the Market and Union Station. So,
well, that's true.
I mean, you're maybe shuttling people around downtown and
getting them around.
having taxis and cab problems like Chicago or New York.
Yes. You know that they're going to figure out a way to get on national TV talking about their free transit. And then like 2 weeks after it ends, they'll say, yeah, we're going to start charging some money for this again, you know? But it worked out well in the Today Show when we got a 2-minute package on our free transit policy that we had in place for a few years. Now we're going to kill it. Now it's going to end. I hadn't thought about that angle, but that is a sneaky good angle and point on the text line that I just saw here. 913-408-7957. Also, no, screw the downtown streetcar funding, too. Completely ridiculous. It's nothing more than a free toilet on rails. Oh, that's pretty good. A free toilet on rails. I've seen a lot on the streetcar. I have not seen it get used yet as a toilet by a homeless person. If and when that day comes, I'll never go on it again. I'll just say that much. Because that is just horrific. Absolutely horrific. And I've seen a lot of nasty stuff on mass transit as somebody used to take the subway in New York City when I was working there. I've seen some nasty things, but I've not seen that. Thank goodness. So that is now going to be something that is at the forefront here in Kansas City in the weeks ahead. I'll ask the mayor about it 1 hour from now, what he plans to do with the KCATA funding and whether or not he's going to ask Johnson County. We know he's buddies with the Johnson County Chairman, Mike Kelly, and potentially his neighbors in Platte County and Clay County. Who knows where else? We'll be asked to kick in a little bit of something for the bus funding. That's going to be something to watch. On the text line, Pete, I live in Kansas. No way. I want my tax dollars going to public transit on the other side of state line. Yep, that's going to be a tough sell, no doubt about it. We'll see how it plays out. You can't possibly come to this conclusion, can you? I mean, there's just no way. There's no way that you could compare the wildfires in California to the blizzard in Kansas City and possibly think that the common theme is, if only we paid more in taxes for a better operating government. There's no way you could possibly think that.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
No, I'm telling you right now, Kansas City or California are not worth more of your Red Lobster money. No way, no how. But that was the conclusion that the Kansas City Star editorial board came to late last week with this story they wrote headlined, "A Tax Lesson We Can't Afford to Ignore. From the KC Blizzard to the California Fires." They wrote here in the Kansas City Star, and when I saw this, I almost spit out my coffee. But that happens most times I read the Kansas City Star. So, I gotta learn my lesson and stop having coffee in my mouth.
Get a bib.
Yeah, exactly. I got to borrow one of my toddler's bibs before I do that. They write
Villanova one, maybe.
Yeah, I could do that, John. It isn't possible to draw a direct line between the blizzard that clobbered Kansas City and the California firestorms. Our snow is a major inconvenience and expensive, but the fires are an historic calamity by any measure, with deaths and injury and property loss. We can and must learn a lesson from both emergencies, which is this: everyone hates the government until disaster strikes. And then government becomes essential and must be paid for. Do you know anyone? I mean, I don't. Maybe you've called the show at 913-408-7957 and made the point before, but I don't remember it. Has anyone said that the government in Kansas City should not be fully funded? Or the government in California should not be fully funded? Of course not. You see, this is a straw man argument. Can you call it a straw man argument, or is it a strong they-them argument? I don't know. I'm just wondering based off of the Kansas City Star's own conjecture here. But either way, it's a straw man argument to claim that we have to just blindly give more money to our cities and our states and our governments at large, because if not, who's going to fight the wildfires? Now listen, Kansas City overall did a fine job with the snow removal for a once-in-a-30-year snowstorm. Could have been better, wasn't awful. California was a calamity. And if you think the problem in Los Angeles, which has some of the highest taxes in the nation, is that they just don't fully fund their government, therefore they were left empty-handed, they were short-handed, they didn't know what to do. If only they paid more in taxes in Los Angeles County, they'd be okay. I mean, you have to be insane to think that the answer to the LA wildfires was just more dollars to the government. So Patrick Tuohy, our good friend at the Show Me Institute, wrote a response to this yesterday as a guest commentary, and credit to the Kansas City Star for letting him publish this. And it was headlined, KC Blizzard, California Fires are a call for better government, not just more of it. And Tuohy was on the show yesterday. If you missed it, he laid this out perfectly here on KCMO.
It seems to be a pretty two-dimensional argument, which is you want government services, so you're going to have to pay for it. And again, at the two-dimension, very surface level, that is true. But it doesn't discuss, well, what are we getting for the money we're already paying? And so my response was to make the point that we're not nihilists or anarchists if we're suspicious of government or if we want accountability. They make a lot. California charges an awful lot for people to have the pleasure of living in that state. The people are completely justified in saying, what are you doing with the money we're already giving you, before they agree to hand over more?
And that's what we would say here in Kansas City. How are you spending the money we give you before we give you more? Kansas City has some of the highest taxes in the region. They've got the 1% earnings tax that nobody else has. 1% of your money, whether you work there or you live there, is just getting handed right over to the government, to the city of Kansas City, Missouri. You've got some of the highest sales taxes. The sales taxes on Broadway in Kansas City are higher than they are on Broadway in New York City, believe it or not. So this notion, whether it's in Kansas City when it comes to snow removal or California when it comes to wildfires, that if only we gave them a few more of our dollars, they'd have everything figured out. You know, homicides would plummet, your snow removal would be taken care of in a heartbeat. No, that's just not true. And wondering how your money is getting spent before you give them more of it is something that happens in the real world every single day. If you go to an area bodega, as Dr. Jill Biden would call it, if you go to an area bodega and suddenly you feel like you're getting slighted on your sandwich, the price keeps going up, but you know, that bodega sandwich with the soup isn't really what it used to be. You're like, hey, I'm getting less bang for my buck. I can take my dollars elsewhere. You can't do that with your government. The only way you can do it is by moving, right? You can move out of a city. And that's part of what Tuohy notes here. Kansas City has struggled to get back to the population levels it was at 50 years ago. And that's people voting with their dollar, and that's people voting with their feet and saying, you know what, I don't think I'm getting the best bang for my buck here.
People just have to understand that we are expecting services from government, just like we expect services from the people we drop our car off to fix or paint our houses or cut our grass, and that it's perfectly legitimate to say, I'm not happy with the services, so I don't want to pay the charge. You can't just say, oh, just put your money into government and never mind what we're doing with it. And so what Kansas City is doing by charging so much and arguably not providing the services people expect is inviting people to leave Kansas City. And our population has been flat for 50 years. We are just now getting up to the population level, Kansas City, Missouri, that we had in the 1970s because we took such a hit in the 80s and 90s. And so people are talking about what a great success is, development. And again, it's good, but we have been flat for 50 years while our neighbors, Raytown, Liberty, Kearney, all of Johnson County have been growing gangbusters because our tax policy in Kansas City is chasing people away.
That was our good friend Patrick Toohey yesterday, Show Me Institute on the show. If you miss it, the entire interview is up on the podcast, Apple or Spotify. Find it there. But he was great yesterday, and this editorial that he wrote responding to the Kansas City Star in the Kansas City Star was very well done. And my favorite line is this. I'll leave you with this from this piece. Kansas City residents who question government spending priorities are not anti-government. They are pro-accountability. Let's go. Woo! That's what I'm talking about,
Brilliant.
John. That is brilliant. It's not anti-government. It is pro-accountability. What are you doing with the dollars that we are putting into your coffers, and how are you spending it? And there are residents in L.A. that are probably lifelong Democrats, and God bless them for that, because this really isn't political on the local level. It's more about, do you want your local tax dollars spent on things that actually keep you safe and on policies that protect you, whether it's from criminals or wildfires or dangerous roads after snow and ice? That's really the simple question. We all want the same thing, but who's going to do it well and who's going to do it efficiently? And you're seeing different levels of failure from L.A. to Kansas City. 913-408-7957. That is our studio line. And our text line on KCMO, it's 7:14 on a Thursday. The mayor of Kansas City will be here coming up in 20 minutes. Quentin Lucas joins us for his weekly spot then. And next hour, Adam Cook, who is the high school football coach of Patrick Mahomes, will be joining us. And Will Cain, the new weekday star on Fox News. Busy morning ahead on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. But who's going to pick the crops? Who's going to do it? You've heard that, right? I've heard it too, ad nauseum over the last, and it's really been on steroids the last couple of days. Who's going to pick our crops? Who will do that? I mean, it sounds like it did for some people back in the 1860s. Who's going to work the fields? It's incredibly racist when you frame it under that umbrella, but that's what people are doing, because they are upset that Donald Trump is doing what he literally ran on, right? And whether it's California or whether it's farms here in Kansas and Missouri, you keep hearing that line come up time and time again. They don't realize how racist it inherently sounds, but it does sound incredibly racist, because it is. So yesterday, a report came out that 75% of immigrant farm workers didn't show up in Bakersfield, California, because of fears of ICE raids under Donald Trump. And the report goes on to suggest that America's rural and agricultural regions, of course, we have plenty of that here in the not in the Kansas City area, but obviously western Kansas. You've got the meatpacking plants that also some people believe could be impacted, the Dodge City
Here
area.
in the surrounds.
Yes, the surrounds, as the mayor would say. But you've got industry here in the surrounds that may also be impacted by this. And the suggestion then on social media and on cable news and anywhere else that you read from people largely on the left is that grocery prices will now skyrocket due to Donald Trump's policies. Well, here's the thing. Do these workers, if they are illegal, do they deserve to be poorly treated, underpaid, and then subsidized by the taxpayer who is paying for their health care rather than having, employers cover their costs? Is that the kind of treatment that you ultimately want? And the argument that crop picking and home construction and landscaping and janitorial work will become more expensive is really, in and of itself, a racist insult to the very undocumented workers that you insist you're trying to get behind. Because what it assumes is that they are all incapable of doing anything else, and that nobody would fill that void. That's what it suggests as well. Now, are there going to be some economic repercussions potentially in the short term? Perhaps. But I can tell you right now, in talking to people in this industry, the greatest impact to producer prices comes from inflation. You've got land lease prices coming up. You've got higher fuel and fertilizer prices. And yes, labor is a factor, but automation is increasing rapidly in these industries, which makes it less important by the day. The labor cost is not the only thing that could increase grocery prices. They make it seem like it is, and it's just not true. And anybody in that industry understands that. But it's all part of a balance. There is no free lunch. There has never been a free lunch when it comes to ultra cheap, basically de facto slave labor that exists for these farms and other businesses. It might make their products cheaper. Might is the key word. But then what you have is basically the taxpayer subsidizing their health care, their education, and other things that ultimately result in their prices going up in other ways, whether it's taxes or even housing, right? If you flood an area of the country, it can be here in Kansas City, it can be somewhere else. If you flood it with cheap, illegal labor, they got to live somewhere. So rents go up. And where are the rents going to go up? In places that are most likely to be lower income. Who does that impact? Well, that impacts people who they're competing with housing for, which is most likely to be the working poor. So it's not this utopia to have people who are here illegally picking crops, doing landscaping, whatever you want to fill in the blank with. It's just not this utopia they make it out to be. And the fact that they make a claim like, well, if they just go away, the price of your groceries are going to skyrocket. There's a give and take to all this. And let's not forget, we already have access to pretty cheap produce that's out there in Mexico that is also grown by and produced by cheap labor. And those prices do not get impacted. So please do not fall for that trick that they're trying to push all over the place right now. You've been seeing it a lot this week. Mike's in Olathe. What's up, Mike? You're on KCMO.
Yeah, the big part of this the whole part of the increase in price, the main reason is because of the cost of transportation, which all goes back to energy, et cetera. But I was wondering, as I said to John, I haven't heard the word green card spoken about the last 4 or 5 years. It's like everybody's got this free reign to cross the border with everything and everyone and being brought across. But it used to be a sort of a sense of pride. You get a green card, you could work, you could send money back home. It was done that way, and it was monitored. It was controlled. There was accountability, and there was a little more pride because, hey, I've got a green card. Here it is. I'm working, etc. What happened to that? Did it just all of a sudden go away?
I don't know. I don't know the answer is the long and short of it. I'm not sure where exactly it went and why it isn't getting any attention. But you're right. I mean, I would. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So it was a system that worked.
I used to drive into Fort Worth and lived in Arlington, and there were like usually 200 Hispanics that were there at a bridge, and they were being actually assigned to where they were going to go, and they were going to go work somewhere, and they weren't illegal. They were there, and they were, and it was a system that did work, and there was accountability.
Here's the key word.
The Dodge Cities and Garden Cities, those folks are now residents there. I don't think it's going to affect the meatpacking plants at all because, frankly, those two cities are thriving and surviving based on those packing plants.
Yep.
They're not
got to run, Mike. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. You're right. Oh, he better not listen to him. He better not. You better not listen to Josh Allen if you are Patrick Mahomes ahead of the AFC Championship game this weekend. Did you hear Allen? Oh, man, wax poetic. Oh, my gosh. He was just kissing the ring or kissing something else. And I think he's trying to lull Patrick into this place where he looks like the nice guy on the other sideline. And everything's just, oh, Patrick, you're so good. I hope one day we can get to your level. And then he's going to come out like a killer on Sunday at Arrowhead. Here was Josh Allen at his press conference yesterday, Buffalo Bills quarterback, talking about the upcoming game against the Chiefs.
I think it's fairly similar to kind of what I feel like we've adopted this year. And, again, they control the ball extremely well. They don't make bad decisions. Obviously, Patrick is one of the greatest to ever play the game. And they're one of the greatest teams to ever be assembled, going for a three-peat, and that's what everybody wants to be in this league, is to have the sustained success that they've had. But again, they play great situational football. they understand when it's time to go and when it's time to kind of fend off someone. So, again, that's what we're aiming to be.
Oh, we all want to be them. If only we could be like them. Oh, man. They are not trying to give any bulletin board material to Kansas City. And that's smart. You don't want to do that. But I'm not falling for it, Josh, okay? I'm not falling for it. And I hope that Patrick just has his fingers in his ears like, la, 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 not listening, because human nature would say, oh, man, what a nice deferential statement. Right, John?
It's a smart business move because if they do lose, we'll be glad to donate to the Oshai Children's Hospital in Buffalo for him once again. So I think he's playing both sides.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. We'll kick in some coin for him.
Yeah, we feel bad. Josh is a nice guy.
Yeah, that was after the 2021 divisional round, right? After the 13-second game.
$13 to Josh Allen's foundation.
I forgot about that. That's right, $13 to Josh Allen.
Being the nice guy will help him out, maybe.
Yeah, he might kick in, a few $million from Chiefs fans when all is said and done on those $13 donations. Maybe that's what he's angling for. He's like, we're going to get our butts kicked, so we'll just, I'll try to sweet talk these Chiefs fans ahead of Sunday.
Would it be like the fourth postseason loss?
Yeah,
I think.
Yes, it would be.
We could donate $4.
We could. That would be very nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was the 2020 AFC Championship. There was the 2021 divisional. There was last year's divisional, and then there would be this season. Yeah, potentially this season. So that's well thought out there. That would be very nice of us, wouldn't it? Now, on the other side, you've got Josh Allen, speaking very nicely about Patrick Mahomes. Then you go to cable news, and you got Tim Burchett just ripping Jim Acosta from CNN to his face. This was actually just like Josh Allen put on a masterclass with that statement yesterday. So did this Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett, who just laid into Jim Acosta on CNN.
This is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network SpongeBob reruns right now, Jim. Look, I left the White House during a riot. My life was threatened. My life has been threatened within the last few weeks, yet there's no coverage of that. And you all continue this narrative attacking Trump. You just can't stand the fact that he won and that America spoke.
Congressman,
and that your view is very diminished.
That's not the case at all.
And your view is very diminished.
Oh, that is great. Talk about just, cable news masterpiece right there.
More of that, please.
Oh, man. Man, you got more people watching SpongeBob reruns on the Cartoon Network than you do CNN. I would argue CNN is just like the Cartoon Network, just a different type of cartoon. Between Jim Acosta and Jake Tapper and the whole gang.
Yeah, that was rich. This is the news.
This
Tell
is
the truth.
This is the news. Oh.
How dare you?
You can't say that on the news, says the newsman, who literally is the definition of promoting and propagandizing fake news. Oh, gosh. Inject that into my veins, please. More, please. Can I have another, sir? Please. Oh, that was beautiful. Well, right now I'm looking at immigration raids going on by ICE in Boston. It looks like Fox has been given some ride-alongs with ICE. And now there's attention here in Kansas City, and one of our area school districts is actually addressing the illegal immigration crackdown that is happening across the country. I don't know why. It's like they're trying to get ahead of things or, I don't know, prove their woke stripes. This was a surprise to me, but Fox 4 had this story yesterday, John.
Mark and I were just talking about it. I didn't realize the component. Now, he had mentioned earlier someone had thought they had seen a truck in the Olathe area, so I thought, surely Shawnee Mission South or Blue Valley would have wanted to get, signal their virtue first.
Exactly, but Olathe got around to it. Here is John Holt, Fox 4, last night.
The agency charged with arresting and deporting illegal immigrants has rescinded its rules that prohibit arrests at schools, among other sensitive locations. Schools nationwide are now on alert, including right here in our metro. In a letter to district employees obtained by Fox 4 News, Olathe Public Schools say they're aware of the policy change and are focusing on the safety and well-being of students and families. Olathe schools expect more guidance from the Kansas State Department of Education tomorrow.
All right, that reporting from John Holt at Fox 4. So Fox 4 obtained this letter from the Olathe School District sent to parents and staff yesterday. Now, I didn't get the letter. Did you get the letter, Mark? Did you see the letter or no? I didn't get it. All right. I don't know who got the letter then.
It might have just been staff, but...
It says staff and parents. That's what Fox 4 is saying in their reporting. But they say here in the reporting, you heard some of that from Fox 4. The letter goes on to say, the safety and well-being of our students remain our highest priority. While these changes are being analyzed, our focus will continue to be on protecting and supporting students and families. We appreciate your patience and understanding as we work through these developments. Now, I don't know why they felt compelled to send out that letter. If you are here as a legal citizen, or even if you're here and you've got the proper paperwork that says you can be here, then you're not at risk. It's really as simple as that, right? Right now, you have elite ICE officers who are targeting violent offenders. That's what's happening today. They are not walking into Olathe North and dragging out some kid by his hair, okay? That's not happening. I know the Kansas City Star fantasizes, and maybe even more than fantasizes, about something like that happening so they can have a front page editorial and news story about it. But I promise you that's not the target right now. And Donald Trump made it clear when he was running that was not going to be the target right out of the gates. We got a problem, but they're not walking into Olathe school districts to, start dragging kids out by their hair. It's ridiculous.
It was interesting. I found they've had incidents with teachers arrested for unlawful sexual contact. We've had a couple of those. We've had guns at the school in the Olathe district. I mean, it hits everywhere, but this particular district's had several other incidents they might want to be more on point about.
Yeah, that would be nice, right? Worry about what's happening under your own roof with some of this stuff versus being like, don't worry. Well, we're on the ball on this one. How about this? How about you get the kids in the damn classroom? My gosh, they've been in school like 5 days out of the last month. Between having 3 weeks off for a Christmas break that's too long, and then you got the snow and the ice, and, it's cold, we can't get the kids in the school then. Do you even remember the kids anymore? Genuinely asking that question. But don't worry, we're going to get ahead of this one. We're going to send out a letter making sure you know that we're protecting the kids. Are you really? I'd like to think so, but man, this is getting ahead of something that is totally unnecessary. It's feeding the fire for those who want to freak out over something that most Americans just voted for. Okay? Most Americans said, you mean the guy in charge who's running for president, one of the major pillars of his platform was to reverse the immigration policies of Joe Biden, and the day he got in office, start going after violent offenders who are here illegally and getting them out of the country? Yes, that sounds pretty good, actually. Yeah, and that guy just won the popular vote and won an electoral college landslide. But instead, you get area school districts like, don't worry, we're going to protect the kids. We're going to be on it. How about you make sure no one's bringing guns to school, okay? How about you start there with that? That would be a good place for you to be. And how about you make sure that you don't have, anybody, God forbid, as John noted, there have been issues with teachers and inappropriate relationships at some of these schools. Let's focus there. Let's look at that before we say, don't worry, immigration raids, we're on it. Now, yesterday you had the Laken Riley Act pass the House. It's now going to President Trump's desk. And that was voted on by Sharice Davids, Democrat here on the Kansas side of the state line. About 45 to 50 Democrats voted in favor of the Laken Riley Act. So you give them credit where it's due. You can say, well, she just voted for it because it was politically wise. I don't really care. I mean, politicians vote for things that are just politically wise and politically expedient all the time. Republicans and Democrats do it. I don't really care. She voted the right way. That was the right thing for her to do. And this Laken Riley Act basically says, if you are here illegally and you are arrested for breaking the law, you're done. You're out. It requires federal officials to arrest non-citizens who are charged with crimes in the U.S. Why? How is that at all controversial? I mean, the fact that 156 Democrats voted against it is very telling, but there were 46 who joined with Republicans to vote for the bill, including Sharice Davids in Kansas. Emanuel Cleaver did not vote for it. On the Missouri side of the state line, I can't say I'm surprised by that, but,
he's a nut job.
That is what it is. But know that this is the kind of stuff that's already happening just days into this administration, and you're seeing it play out in some ways locally. Now, one of those who voted against it, unsurprisingly, was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of New York, and she had this to say yesterday on the House floor.
If someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court, without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty.
I'm going to read this to you from Congress.gov. The bill requires the Department of Homeland Security to detain illegal aliens who have been arrested for burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting. The bill also authorizes states to sue the federal government for decisions or alleged failures related to immigration enforcement. It's named after Laken Riley, the girl who was killed on the running trail at the University of Georgia by a guy who had been arrested before in the country. And it would authorize states to sue the federal government for decisions or alleged failures related to immigration enforcement. Basically, if you're not doing your job as a government, you are setting yourself up for a bad lawsuit. And it's about time the government had its feet held to the fire on doing its duty in protecting American citizens. That's literally part of the job at its very core. And for at least the last 4 years, they have failed miserably on that front. And it's one of the reasons that Donald Trump won. Let's be very clear. I know Donald Trump's got a hardcore base and a diehard message that people love. But Donald Trump won because of how poor of a job the guy before him did. And come on, man. No, it's true. I mean, that's literally the main reason he won, because of the economic policies, the border policies. That was issue 1 and 1A that led to Donald Trump getting back to the White House. And now he's doing what he promised to do. And you've got some in local media, not John Holt, I'm just saying some in local media who are freaking out over it, acting like this is 2017. And it's not. It's not. You have the most diverse coalition of voters the Republican Party has ever had. And this was one of the pillars of Donald Trump's reelection bid. If you want to keep trying this same old tired blueprint, please be my guest. It's not going to work. People are done buying it.